true giants among all terrestrial predators on our planet. Despite their truly enormous size, these mighty creatures can become almost invisible to everything around them. Their arsenal hides countless clever techniques and tactics that allow them to overcome even the most cautious, skittish, and vigilant prey. While their brown relatives eagerly feast on salmon in raging river currents, these lords of the north prefer to hunt truly gigantic inhabitants of the ocean depths. Dear friends, welcome to the Noctera channel. Today we will take a very detailed look at how the true ruler of the Arctic expanses hunts, the polar bear. The polar bear rightfully holds the title of the largest representative of the entire bear family and, at the same time, the heaviest land predator on Earth. Adult males often reach up to 3 meters in length, and their weight can exceed 700 kilograms. These animals inhabit the circumpolar regions of the Arctic and spend most of their lives on sea ice, which is why they are often called sea bears. Unlike most of their omnivorous relatives, the polar bear is a strict carnivore. It feeds exclusively on animals capable of surviving the harsh Arctic conditions alongside it. It is superbly adapted to moving across slippery ice, deep snow, and icy water. However, even in such a seemingly native environment, obtaining food is incredibly difficult. Almost complete silence and emptiness reign all around. At first glance, the Arctic surface appears to be an endless white desert, but beneath a thick layer of ice, diverse life is teeming. These two worlds, above and below the water, are closely intertwined. This connection is especially evident in marine mammals, which must regularly surface to breathe air. The polar bear is well aware of this vital weakness of its potential prey. Take the beluga, for example, an incredibly agile and graceful marine mammal from the toothed whale family, which is itself a formidable predator. With an average body length of about 4 meters, these animals weigh over 1 ton, and their skin is often covered with traces of past battles and deep scars. When the sea is bound by a solid icy shell, the number of open water areas sharply decreases. The remaining plains turn into vital points on the map. It is here that the most skilled and patient hunter takes up the perfect position and begins an exhausting, hours-long wait. Sensing danger, belugas dive deep, but they cannot remain without air for more than 15 to 20 minutes, so they are inevitably forced to surface again and again. Catching a beluga in open water is nearly impossible, yet over thousands of years bears have developed several highly effective strategies. Some individuals settle as comfortably as possible right at the edge of the ice, and patiently wait for hours, or even days, until the prey swims close enough for a strike. Less patient or younger bears sometimes try to pursue their prey by swimming, but against fast and alert whales this tactic almost always ends in failure. Here, only the art of ambush decides everything. With the onset of tides, belugas often approach closer to shore, and then the most cold-blooded and patient hunters get a real chance of success. Frozen like an ice block, the bear completely lulls the vigilance of its surroundings and, at the decisive moment, makes a lightning-fast dash. Even if the prey turns out to be just a calf, such luck more than compensates for many hours of motionless waiting. Of course, like their brown relatives, polar bears will gladly catch fish when the opportunity arises, but such episodes occur far less frequently in their lives. The chance of catching a fat salmon remains low, and only the most agile and fortunate receive a worthy reward. In general, these giants much more often choose truly large prey, whose mass often exceeds their own weight. The most vivid example is the walrus. These 3-meter heavyweights, weighing about a ton, are armed with powerful tusks up to 1 meter long. But on land, they become far more vulnerable than in their native aquatic element. Nevertheless, even for an experienced predator, a walrus remains an extremely dangerous opponent. Only the most desperate and hungriest individuals, with almost nothing left to lose, dare to engage in such a fight. When an intruder appears, walruses try to retreat to the water as quickly as possible, but for such massive animals this is a real challenge. While the main part of the herd rushes toward the saving water, those left in the rear actively use their tusks, trying to drive away the uninvited guest. The bear is too intelligent to rush into the middle of the herd. It looks for solitary individuals or animals that have fallen behind. However, a walrus's skin, up to 10 centimeters thick, is extraordinarily tough and makes up almost a fifth of its total body mass. Even the most powerful jaws with long canines are not always able to pierce this natural armor. Attempts to restrain and immobilize such a heavy carcass most often end in failure, and the coveted high-calorie meal slips away literally from under the bear's claws. Of course, not every polar bear is capable of defeating such a formidable opponent. When summer arrives and the familiar hunting grounds begin to melt, the locals are forced to look for alternative food sources. Vast stores of calories still lure the predator, but instead of one risky battle, it switches to another, no less dangerous pursuit. Among thousands of nesting seabirds, one can always find a desired delicacy, eggs or chicks. To reach them, the huge animal has to turn into a real rock climber. One wrong step, and the animal plunges into the abyss, but the temptation is too great to retreat. Finally, after a difficult and tense climb, the bear manages to reach the coveted clutch, and it has no intention of stopping at just one find. Guillemots desperately defend their nests to the very end, but against such overwhelming power, they are completely helpless. Another generous gift of fate is a whale carcass thrown ashore by a storm. Even if it doesn't look very appealing and has already begun to spoil, for starving bears it is a real stroke of luck, allowing them to feed their fill for several days. In a single sitting, an adult animal can consume up to 60 kilograms of meat. And with the return of cold and ice, life settles back into its usual rhythm. The main hunt resumes for seals. Knowing the locations of unfrozen piranhas, the predator can lie in ambush for hours, waiting for an animal that urgently needs air. Most such waits end without result, but in about 1 out of 10 cases, an experienced hunter manages to deliver a precise and fatal blow. The less ice remains, the more difficult hunting becomes. In order not to frighten the ultra-sensitive prey, the huge bear turns into a giant white cat, blending into the landscape, moving with extreme caution, and calculating every next step. If camouflage fails, the predator instantly switches to pursuit, but the seal has fractions of a second to dive into the saving water. In the icy kingdom, tactics are honed almost to perfection, yet even in open water a seal can sometimes become prey, provided the hunter manages to become absolutely invisible. Given the colossal size, this seems almost impossible, but the bear carefully assesses the situation and constructs a cunning plan. Without a single splash or sound, it slowly swims toward the unsuspecting victim. The process requires enormous patience. The predator constantly has to surface to check the distance and adjust its direction. The seal remains alert even while resting, so one must not give oneself away until the very last second. And even perfect execution does not always bring success. Sometimes the bear has to leap after the escaping swimmer. But surprise and outstanding swimming skill in most cases still secure victory. Despite all their ingenuity and astonishing adaptability, for most of the year polar bears still remain in a state of chronic hunger. Global warming accelerates the melting of sea ice, depriving these animals of their main hunting platform and familiar habitat. According to the latest estimates, there are roughly 22 to 31,000 of these magnificent creatures left in the world. However, if current trends continue, by the end of this century they may completely disappear from their ancestral Arctic domains. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, and stay with us. Until next time.